If you've been around for a while, then you know how much I care about financial freedom for all. One thing that often gets in the way of that is debt. That's why I'm happy to announce that I've partnered with an amazing organization called Juno. Juno helps you get lower interest rates by using the power of group negotiation. It is a completely free resource that you can use to secure lower interest rates on new and existing student loans. Head to the link in the episode show notes to find out more. This is the Dreamers Podcast, episode 36 with Koereyelle Dubose. Today is September 21st, 2021.
There's a whole range of different levels of women, but regardless of where you are, very first thing is changing your mindset or understanding your current mindset around what multiple streams of income even looks like.
Hello, world. Welcome to the Dreamers Podcast. I am Stephanie Anne-Lyse, also known as Anne-Lyse Wealth. I am a financial coach and an author. I self-published my first book, Dream of Legacy, a guide to help dreamers reach financial independence and build generational wealth. In this podcast, I'll have conversations with experts and thought leaders who dare to follow their dreams. You'll hear about their journey and their money stories. I hope it inspires you, dreamers out there, to live life on your own terms.
Come on, dreamers, let's change the world!
This podcast is brought to you by Dream of Legacy. Check out dreamoflegacy.com for resources to assist you on your journey to financial independence. Before we get into today's episode, please take a couple minutes to go into Apple Podcasts, if you're listening from an Apple device, to rate and review the podcast. If you appreciate the free resources that are provided in this podcast, then the best way to let me know is to do just that. Reviews help the podcast be more visible, and it helps other dreamers discover the podcast. So thank you. I appreciate you. And now let's get back to today's episode. Hello, dreamers. Welcome to the Dreamers Podcast. I'm your host, Anne-Lyse Wealth. Thank you for tuning in to today's episode. Today, I'm talking with Koereyelle Dubose. Koereyelle is the founder of the online trade school, Work University. She's on a mission to connect women of color to the resources they need so they can save themselves, stop living paycheck to paycheck, and start living the life of their dreams. Koereyelle is an international speaker and an award-winning entrepreneur. She's been featured in Forbes, Black Enterprise, Huffington Post, NBC, Fox, and many more for her service to women around the world. Koereyelle is an expert at teaching women how to get paid. So today we're talking about how to get started with a side hustle. She shares her best tips to identify side hustle. We talk about the mindset necessary to earn more. Koereyelle shares her top 3 lessons as a serial entrepreneur. She's on business number 9. She shared with us the different income streams that she has and so much more. Here is Koereyelle Dubose. Koereyelle Dubose, welcome to the Dreamers Podcast.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Can you tell our listeners a little bit about you and what you do?
Yes. So I am truly an advocate for Black excellence. That's how I like to kind of describe who I feel like I am at the moment. I am a soon-to-be wife. I am a new mom, a serial entrepreneur, and in my heart of hearts, I am an educator. My professional background is in education. I was a classroom teacher, 2nd and 3rd grade teacher for a few years after college, and I've been in entrepreneurship ever since. And so definitely excited anytime I have the opportunity to talk about my journey, because I really believe a lot of things that I've gone through have helped me so that I can turn around and help other people. So I'm excited to be here and just hoping that whatever we talk about today will be helpful for someone listening.
Yeah, so you were a teacher, right? And now you are on business number 9. Can you talk to us a little bit about your journey?
Absolutely. So I said that I'm an educator in my heart of hearts because at the end of the day, pretty much every one of those businesses that I've had over the years have been rooted in some sort of education. That just truly is at the core of who I am. I believe that I learn things so I can teach them to other people so that their journey can be a little bit quicker, a little less stressful, and, just being able to pass those lessons on. So started my very first business while I was actually a teacher. One thing about me is I never wanted to be broke. Like, even though I knew that I was signing up for a career that was not necessarily going to be, paying me six figures or anything even close to six figures, I didn't let that make me live a lifestyle that I didn't want to live. So I knew that in order to travel or do the things that I wanted to do, I was going to have something going on in addition to just this paycheck that I was getting paid. So I started my first business while I was teaching from that business, which was a handmade beaded bracelet business. And that was in 2011. So since then, 2011 is when I started the Single Wives Club. And the Single Wives Club is a business that truly put me on the map. And that was a business that came from a place of, going through something personal, ending an engagement and wanting to better myself, figure out how I could make better choices, and then building a business, not really meaning to, that helped other women do the same. And so since then, I've done several things within the empowerment space. But in 2019, I decided that I wanted to retire from empowerment and switch my focus to creating real resources to help Black women specifically get paid. And so that is where I spend the majority of my time right now and what I'm super passionate about.
Well, you said so much there. I can't wait to dig in. But, before we get into it, much deeper into it, so can you tell us about an early money memory that you have and how it has impacted your views as an adult?
I think one thing now that I am a parent and just thinking about how I want to, raise my children, one thing that really sticks out for me from my childhood that I appreciate is that my dad specifically, anytime we were out anywhere or there was something to be paid for, he made sure that I was the one that was paying for it, that I was calculating how much change I needed to get, that I was doing the math, that I was being responsible for it, that I was going up and, paying by myself, bringing back the correct change, counting it out in front of him, making those strategic, him being strategic and doing those things with me. And I think him showing me the importance of being responsible and the importance of, making sure you double check and, all of those things definitely gives me something to pass on. So I think that even though I've made my fair share of money mistakes for sure over the years, just knowing that I do have somewhat of a foundation with, knowing to take responsibility early and knowing to, I guess, be in charge of your finances, even if it's only going to get the change.
And I think it's also a skill that you can apply in your business too, right? Making sure that you get paid.
For sure.
So on Twitter, you wrote that multiple streams of income are no longer a luxury. It's a necessity. Can you talk to us about the different ways that you're earning money?
Right now, Work University is my baby in terms of what I actively spend my time doing. Well, I have a real baby now, so I guess I can't say that anymore. But in terms of what I'm actively spending my time doing, it would definitely be Work University, and that's a membership program. So that's one stream of income. In addition to just the membership, there's other kind of streams that come off of Work University, but we'll just categorize all of that from the events that we have to the digital products. We could just say that that's, I guess, one stream, Work University. I also have a travel business. So I used to be a travel agent, transitioned from being a travel agent to becoming a travel agency owner and training other women to become certified travel agents. One stream of income under that business is the travel agent certification course that I have. And then the other stream of income is the actual travel agency, which is another recurring revenue style income. We also have cars on Turo. That would be 4. We are real estate investors through Airbnb. That would be 5. Just released my baby's book. That would be 6. Oh, and then I kind of give this its own category because it doesn't really fall under any of those, but that would be like my brand deal. So work that I do, as an influencer for different brands.
Love it. So I've been hearing a lot about Turo right now. Do you mind telling us what you do and how can people get into it?
We do Turo, but he is probably like the 95% you can have all different types of vehicles on Turo. When I think about Turo here in Atlanta, the majority of the people who I thought rented cars were renting like the flashy cars. So like the Lamborghinis, the Maseratis, the Range Rovers, all of those types of cars, which they are. But there's also a market for, like your Honda, your Nissans, the smaller cars that people are coming into town for work trips. They just need something to get around, but they don't want to spend $200, $300, $500 a day. They just want to spend $20, $30, $40. And no, that's not a whole lot of money. But if you think about what your car note would be for a Honda Civic versus what you can make renting it out for $30 a day, $20 a day times, at least 20 days out of the month, it's worthwhile. It's a stream of income and it's paying for itself. Fairly easy in terms of managing it. I think the biggest hassle is probably the pickup and drop off, because a lot of times people want airport pickup. So depending on how far you live from the airport, you can charge them for that, but that's typically a service that, a lot of people offer on Turo. So that's something that you are going to pretty much need to find a way to offer. So that's one thing to consider. But there is money, there is definitely money to be made. There's also risk too, but you're still going to have to pay that car note. So there's different things like that I think people don't really talk about, that I feel like you should at least mention, before you just tell people to go out and buy a fleet of vehicles. Definitely attractive, but things you need to research too.
Can you use your personal car? Like, can you decide when you want to rent it out, or?
Yeah, so you can just make dates available. So you could literally say, I only want to rent it out 2 days out of the month. And that's one thing that some people do. They'll buy like the Maserati, knowing that the car note is, $1,000 a month or something like that. And they'll say, okay, I'm going to rent it out only 3 days out of the month. And they rent it out 3 days out of the month. That pays their car note. And then they drive it around town, their dream car around town for the rest of the month. And they've paid for it on Turo. You can do it that way. You can also say, okay, it's only going to be available on Tuesdays, or it's only going to be available on the weekends, or, whatever. You can make it available for your schedule.
Interesting. So earlier you said that you specialize in basically helping women get paid.
Yep.
Which tips do you have for any of our listeners who might be interested in earning more, but they're just not sure which side hustle to start? Which steps can they take?
So one of the very first things that our students do when they get inside of Work University is our foundations course. And we literally have women that are, like you mentioned, knowing they want to start a side hustle, but have no idea what to start. From there to women who have been in business for 5+ years and are just looking for more streams to add, more ways to diversify their income, basically. So there's a whole range of different levels of women, but regardless of where you are, very first thing is, first of all, changing your mindset or understanding your current mindset around what multiple streams of income even looks like. Because for a lot of us who were raised by people who were working toward retirement, working their fingers to the bone to retire at 65. And then, that's what most of our parents did. They worked for one company, did one thing for X number of years in hopes of getting this paycheck at the end of, this retirement. And so if you were raised by someone like that, 9 times out of 10, your idea of getting paid probably looks like a job of some sort. If we think that in order for us to make money, it has to look like this, because our parents taught us things like, you can't make money off of that art, or you can't make money by liking music, or you can't make money by writing. We grew up with those, those things being preached to us over and over again, that you got to get serious. You can't make money off of things that they didn't think you could make money off of. So their first step is making sure you get out of that mindset and that belief system and understand that you truly can profit off of the things that you're passionate about. You just have to have a strategy behind it. So first step is like the mindset around it. The second step is an assessment, and it's a self-assessment of you figuring out your skills, your gifts, your talents, the things that, you're passionate about, the things that you are excited to learn more about, the things that you have an obsession with, like doing an assessment and a real audit of those things. And then the second half of that is making it make sense in terms of dollars and cents. Like, how, based on this list, how can you monetize these things? Because when I tell y'all, you can get paid for literally, people get paid doing the craziest things that you just would not believe. And I think that because we were raised to believe, making money needs to look a certain way, or you have to have a career in order to be respected or whatever, you have to have a degree, or you got to use your degree, or whatever it is that you have been taught. Because we have believed that for so long, a lot of times we don't pursue the things that we really enjoy doing because we feel like we can't be taken serious if we do those things, and we can't really make money doing those things, and we can't really make a living doing those things. And you really actually can. I think a big part of what I do is helping people realize that making money is the easy part. Figuring out what you want to do is more difficult usually than actually making money off of it. And then the third part is marketing, figuring out how you can market that so that you can actually make money.
You went from a teacher salary to building, I guess, multiple six-figure businesses. Can you share the most important lessons that you've learned as an entrepreneur?
Ooh, okay. So yes, let me think back to like the beginning and bring it to now. And let me try to think of like three good ones. At the beginning with the Single Wife Club, again, it was something that I was not trying to start a business. It honestly, at the very beginning, it was a nonprofit because it was truly just a passion project for me. I had gotten out of this abusive relationship, ended this engagement, and really was just trying to figure out like what in the world just happened. How can I avoid this? How can I use this as a stepping stone to become the wife that I knew that I wanted to be, and not let this terrible relationship stop me from being able to do that? People didn't understand the concept of a single wife because it was new. I made it up. It was something that I just came up with. I was a single woman, but I was preparing to become a wife. Mm-hmm. And so the biggest lesson that I learned at that time is that everybody's not going to understand what you're doing. Everybody is not meant to understand it. And you do not have enough time to slow down to try to explain yourself to people who aren't going to get it anyway, because you can explain until you're blue in the face. You're going to upset yourself because you're passionate about it. And you know that this is something that you are being called to do. And, you're fighting for it. And at the end of the day, you don't have energy or time to waste trying to convince people who probably aren't going to be like your customer anyway. So that was a very big lesson, because you do expect the people you love or even just the people you know to support you. And it can be disappointing, but just know that that really, truly is just part of it. It happens to everybody. It's part of it. So that would be a big lesson. Another big lesson would be knowing that you can't really get to your big goals unless you figure out how to start delegating. And this is a lesson that I learned and relearning. I feel like I always, this is just a constant, because most people who are any kind of successful on any scale, they have a certain type of go-getter, get-ish done type of mindset. And for people like that, it can be challenging to delegate, because by the time I explained to you how to do it, I could have did it 5 times. And so that mindset and that attitude, even though it might be true, in the long term, it's going to come back to bite me if I don't figure out how to adjust it and figure out how to slow down for long enough to effectively and efficiently show people how to do what I need them to do so that I can focus on doing what I need to do. So that's definitely a major lesson. And then the last one I would say is there's always somebody connected to you that could lead to your next opportunity. Like there's always someone surrounding you, whether it's just someone who might have saw you on social media, or it might be a friend of a friend, or someone at an event, someone heard you speak, someone heard you on a podcast, whatever. There's someone, like the 6 degrees of separation thing, there's someone within range that has the key to open that next door for you. And so just always knowing that the relationships that you start, making sure you nurture them, making sure you're good to people, like making sure you care about your name, your reputation, just being a good person, like that truly, truly is priceless. That is going to get you further than everything else. Like doing right by people, being a person of your word, all of those things are super important. More important, I would, even say, than all of the other stuff, because you could have a bomb product, you could have an amazing service, under deliver, over promise. Those types of things will ruin you. So those would be like my top 3 random lessons that I've learned.
You had me nodding the whole time. Like, those are great lessons. The last one, though, I think some people don't realize. And I think one of my favorite quotes is, there's always someone watching you who has the power to bless you.
Yep. And
just moving accordingly is so important.
Absolutely. It is. And people don't stress that enough.
So can you talk about how you're investing your earnings to build more wealth for the future?
Yeah. So with the Airbnb specifically, we decided to purchase that property last year as an investment because we knew that he's been in real estate for years.
When you say he, do you mean your fiance?
Yes. Yeah, that's my he. Yes, Kendrick, I'm sorry. The amount of money that he was able to earn doing traditional type of, just like a regular renter in comparison to what you can do with short-term rental like Airbnb, it's like quadruple, or it can be. It can be much more than what you can do with a traditional renter. And so he's always, he's been in real estate forever. But in knowing that we wanted to focus on growing our money and not just making money, that was like an obvious choice for us. So Airbnb is definitely one of the ways that we have been investing money in terms of real estate. He actually has been looking into other properties with his business partners, but that's related to real estate as well. Turo is an investment because all of the funds that we make on top of the car note, we're able to use that to reinvest into other areas as well. And then, things like stock market. We're always looking for ways that we can be diverse in our investments. I think it's super, super important for me to make sure that I don't have all of my eggs in one basket.
Love it. And so for Airbnb, for any of our listeners, do you have any words of wisdom for anyone who might be interested in getting started?
Okay, so we have one Airbnb right now for a property that we own, a cabin here in Atlanta. But in 2018 is when we first started Airbnb in like downtown Atlanta, and we were doing it with apartments. So we were basically like subletting these apartments. That is one of the ways that I feel like most people want to get started, because most people aren't looking to go purchase a property to put on Airbnb, or most people aren't looking to use their own apartment for Airbnb. Some people do those things, but the majority of people who are looking to get into it for business reasons are usually asking me, how do they do it, by renting out an apartment? And I personally do not encourage people to do that. There are ways that you can do it. I've seen people teaching classes and having programs and doing all of the things to tell you, about Airbnb friendly properties and, different things that you can do. And all of those things exist, but I'm not familiar with those things. So I don't like to talk about things that I don't know about. Do your research. I'm not saying you can't do it, but you need to figure out how it needs to be done before you spend the money going into the lease. Cause you got to put up not even necessarily a security deposit, but like the first and last month's rent or whatever. You have to furnish the apartment. And there's always little things that you just don't even think about when it comes to furnishing something. It's not just, I'm going to buy a bed and, get a couch. There's, oh my God, you need so many towels. Oh my God, you need so many changes of sheets. There's so many things that you just don't realize until you're like in it that are costly. And you don't want to invest that time and that money. And then you get caught and you have to buy out a lease, which is another couple $1,000s, or you have an eviction on your rental history, which is terrible, like worst thing ever in the world. So there's just lots of things that you want to make sure you take into consideration if you decide to go that route. So that would be one thing. And then two, just knowing the investment that is truly going to take, because again, it isn't just, I'm going to buy, like buying the dishes. And think about when you really moved into your first apartment and you had to buy everything from scratch. You literally have to do that for each of these apartments. So you're starting a hospitality business. So it's much more that goes into it than I think people take into consideration. So just know what you're getting into overall would be like my best advice.
So do you use a property manager or do you manage the property yourself?
That's my job. I manage the property. I market the property, with our Instagram and stuff. And then Kendrick does and then I manage online. He manages offline.
So what has been the best money advice you've received so far?
Making sure that you are focusing not only on making the money, but how is the money working for you? Like you're working hard to make the money, but how is the money that you're making working for you? It's only working for you if you're investing it somehow, if it's out actively doing something, but you can't have it sitting in a shoebox. I mean, you can't have it sitting in a bank account, but if it's not earning interest, it's really just collecting dust. It needs to be out doing something, whether it's, reinvested into a business venture or in a stock or in a retirement fund or, something. It has to be doing something and not just collecting dust. That's probably the biggest and best advice that I received.
Great advice. I think the shoebox, definitely we don't want to do that. The savings account right now, inflation is at 5%, so you're losing money. So you definitely don't want to keep it there either. Love it. So I like to end the interview with a round of rapid fire questions.
Okay.
Can you tell me about a book that changed your perspective on life?
Oh, I really loved The Alchemist.
One thing about money you wish you could tell your younger self.
Invest it.
Best investment in yourself you ever made.
Therapy.
Fill in the blank in 3 words or less. Money to me is
Freedom.
What do you want your legacy to be?
Ooh, impacting and educating the Black community.
Love it. Well, Koereyelle, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. Can you tell the dreamers where they can find you?
Absolutely. I'm all in these internet streets at Koereyelle, on Instagram at The Work University, and then online at workuniversity.com. And that's work with an E.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right. That was Koereyelle Dubose. I hope you enjoyed this week's episode. I have some amazing guests coming up on the podcast in the upcoming weeks. Just tune in. Thank you for listening to today's episode of the Dreamers Podcast. You can find the episode show notes and all of the links mentioned at dreamoflegacy.com. If you liked today's episode, here's what you can do to support me and help more dreamers discover the podcast. Follow the podcast on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen to podcasts. Rate and review the podcast to help the podcast gain more visibility. Share the podcast with your family, friends, and coworkers. And if you really enjoyed today's episode, please take a second to tag me at thedreamers.podcast on Instagram and let me know what you liked about today's episode. All right, dreamers, that's it for today. I will see you back here next week for another episode of the Dreamers Podcast.
Okay, dreamers, time to build this legacy.
This podcast is for general information purposes only. It is not intended to provide any tax, legal, financial planning, insurance, accounting, investment, or any other kind of professional advice or services. Please consult with an appropriate tax, financial, or legal professional to receive appropriate advice based on your situation.
Sunday, Skincare Day, is one of the ways I keep my sanity in these crazy times. Dreamino is an all-natural, Black-owned skincare brand carefully handcrafted by parents who could not find the proper care solutions to address their family skin problems. All Dreamino products are made of organic and high-quality ingredients, meticulously chosen to give your skin the smooth results and the glow it deserves.